The day the aliens came, Sarah Chen was eating breakfast with her daughter. The morning news showed strange lights in the sky over Beijing, New York, London, and 100 other cities. Within an hour, those lights became ships, massive ships that blocked out the sun and cast shadows over entire countries. The Velkari did not ask for permission. They did not negotiate. They simply arrived with weapons that turned tanks into melted metal and made fighter jets fall from the sky like broken toys. Earth's militaries fought back with everything they had. It was not enough. It was never going to be enough. In 72 hours, every government on Earth surrendered. The Velkari accepted this surrender with the bored attitude of adults dealing with difficult children. They did not hate humanity. They simply did not care about humanity. To them, humans were useful workers and nothing more. Commander Lyra Okonkwo watched the surrender announcement from deep underground. The bunker was hidden beneath the Rocky Mountains, built decades ago for a war that never came. Now it served a different purpose. Around her, dozens of screens showed classified information that the Velkari had never found. Information about something called Project Prometheus. "They think it's over," said Colonel James Martinez, standing beside her. His face was tired and dirty. He had lost his entire unit in the first hours of the invasion. "Let them think that," Lyra replied. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. Not from fear, from anger. "The moment they believe we are broken is the moment we begin to win." On the screens, satellite images showed the last pieces of humanity's secret. Ships, hidden ships, built over 30 years in places no one would ever look. Deep inside asteroids, beneath the frozen oceans of Europa, drifting in the endless darkness at the edge of the solar system. The Velkari had destroyed every military base and every known shipyard, but they had not destroyed what they did not know existed. Project Prometheus had begun long before the invasion. It started as a simple question asked by nervous scientists and paranoid generals. What if we are not alone? What if whoever finds us is not friendly? The answer was to prepare in secret, to build weapons and ships that no enemy could find, to hide humanity's true strength where no one would think to look. The project was known to only a few hundred people on Earth. Presidents and prime ministers came and went without ever learning about it. The secret was kept perfectly, passed from one generation of guardians to the next. And now that secret was humanity's only hope. Lyra turned to face her team. They were the survivors, the ones who had made it to safety before the Velkari sealed the surface. Engineers, pilots, soldiers, scientists, the best humanity had to offer, gathered in a hole in the ground while aliens walked freely above them. "Listen carefully," she said. "The world thinks we lost. The Velkari think they won. We are going to let them keep thinking that, for as long as it takes." A young officer raised his hand. "Commander, what about the people up there? Our families? We're just going to leave them?" Lyra's expression softened for just a moment. She thought of her own mother in Lagos, her brother in London. She had no idea if they were alive or dead. The thought was a knife in her heart, but she pushed it aside. "We are not leaving them," she said. "We are saving them. But not today. Today we disappear. We become ghosts. We let the enemy forget that we exist. And when the time comes when they have grown comfortable and lazy, we will remind them of what humanity can do." Above ground, the Velkari began to reshape Earth to suit their needs. They did not destroy cities or kill civilians without reason. They were not monsters in the simple sense. They were something worse. They were conquerors who saw humans as tools, useful tools that needed to be managed and controlled. High Overseer Thalbex was placed in charge of Earth. He was tall even for a Velkari, with gray skin and eyes that held no warmth. He had conquered 12 worlds before this one. Earth was nothing special to him. Just another planet full of primitives who had played with nuclear toys and thought themselves advanced. "The humans are cooperative," his assistant reported during the first week. "Resistance has been minimal." "Of course it has," Thalvex replied. "They understand their position. They are intelligent enough to know they cannot win and wise enough to accept their new place in the order of things." He looked out the window of his command ship, which now hovered permanently over the ruins of the United Nations building in New York. The humans below moved like ants, going about their small lives under the shadow of Velkari power. Catalog their skills, he ordered. The useful ones will work in our factories. The scientists can assist our engineers. The rest can farm and build and serve as all conquered peoples do. He did not give humans another thought. They were a solved problem, a closed chapter. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of species across thousands of years. Humans were no different from any of them. But Thalvex had made a mistake. The same mistake every Velkari made when they looked at humanity. He saw their short lives and called them weak. He saw their small bodies and called them fragile. He saw their young civilization and called them primitive. He did not see their patience. He did not see their anger. He did not see the cold fire that burned in the hearts of people who had learned to hide their true feelings behind smiles and obedience. Deep underground, Commander Okonkwo began sending messages to hidden bases across the solar system. The messages were coded in ways the Velkari could not understand, hidden in signals that looked like natural cosmic noise. The messages all said the same thing: begin, prepare, wait. Across the darkness of space, in shipyards that did not officially exist, human engineers started working faster. The ships they built were black as night, designed to be invisible to every sensor the Velkari possessed. The weapons they installed were based on stolen alien technology, studied and improved by human minds that refused to accept defeat. Sarah Chen, who had been eating breakfast when the world ended, now worked in a Velkari factory. She assembled parts for machines she did not understand. She smiled at her overseers and did her work without complaint. But at night, in the darkness of her small apartment, she whispered stories to her daughter. Stories about heroes who waited in the shadows. Stories about a fleet hidden among the stars. Stories about a day when the sky would split open and humanity would show its true face. Her daughter listened with wide eyes and asked, "Is it true, Mama? Are they really out there?" Sarah smiled and kissed her forehead. "Yes, my love, they are out there, and one day they will come for us." Above them, the Velkari slept peacefully, certain of their victory. They had no idea what was coming. 5 years passed under Velkari rule. The world changed in ways both large and small. Cities were rebuilt to suit alien needs. New factories rose from the ground, producing goods that were shipped to distant worlds humans would never see. Children grew up learning the Velkari language alongside their own. For many, the occupation became normal. It became life. But some people did not forget. Some people never stopped fighting. In the deep black of space, far beyond the reach of Velkari sensors, Admiral Chen Wei-Lin stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiance. The ship was enormous, nearly 2 kilometers long, built in secret over 15 years inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Its hull was covered in a special material that absorbed all light and signals. To sensors, it simply did not exist. Around the Defiance, 300 other ships held position in perfect formation. Battleships, carriers, destroyers, and support vessels. Each one black as the void. Each one crewed by humans who had sacrificed everything to be here. This was the Covert Armada, humanity's hidden fist. "Status report," Wayland said. His voice was calm and steady. He had been calm and steady for 5 years, even when his heart burned with the desire to attack. "All ships report ready, Admiral," replied his first officer, Commander Elena Vasquez. "Weapons charged. Crews at full readiness. We can strike at any moment." "Not yet." Wayland walked to the main view screen and stared at the distant dot that was Earth's sun. So far away now. So small. "We get one chance at this. One surprise. If we attack before we are ready, we lose everything." He thought about the people still on Earth. The billions living under Velkari control. Every day he waited was another day they suffered. The weight of that knowledge was heavy, but the weight of failure would be heavier. "Continue training, El," he ordered. "Continue waiting. The signal will come when it comes." Back on Earth, the resistance operated in shadows. They called themselves the Remnant, and they had become ghosts. Their members were everywhere and nowhere. Factory workers, farmers, servants, even some who worked directly for the Velkari. They smiled during the day and plotted during the night. Commander Lyra Okonkwo had aged in the past 5 years. Gray touched her hair now, and lines marked her face. But her eyes were the same. Hard, determined, unbroken. She moved constantly, never staying in one place for more than a few days. The underground networks that had been built before the invasion now served as highways for the resistance. People and supplies moved beneath the surface of the Earth, invisible to the aliens who thought they controlled everything. "Report from Sector 7, said her aide, a young man named Thomas who had been only 15 when the invasion began. "Another successful extraction. 12 more specialists are on their way to the Europa facility." Lyra nodded. This was how they fought. Not with guns and bombs, but with patience and planning. The best engineers, the brightest scientists, the most skilled pilots. They disappeared from Earth one by one, reported as dead in mining accidents or factory mishaps. In truth, they were smuggled off the planet through routes the Valkyrie never thought to watch. "How many does that make?" she asked. 47,000, Commander. 47,000 people successfully extracted over 5 years. It was a tiny fraction of Earth's population, but it was enough. Those 47,000 were now crewing the ships of the hidden Armada, building weapons, training for the day when they would return. High Overseer Thalvex knew nothing of this. To him, Earth was a model colony. Production numbers were good. Resistance was minimal. The humans had accepted their place with admirable grace. He spent most of his time preparing reports for the Dominion Council, recommending Earth as a template for future conquests. See how easy it was. Find a primitive species, demonstrate overwhelming power, and they would fold like paper. No need for genocide or destruction. Just show them who was stronger, and they would serve willingly. "The humans are fascinating in their way," he told a visiting Dominion inspector. "They adapt quickly. They follow orders well. They have even improved some of our manufacturing processes with their suggestions." The inspector was impressed. "Perhaps they are more intelligent than most primitives." "Intelligent enough to be useful," Thalvex agreed. "Not intelligent enough to be a threat." If he had known what was happening in the outer reaches of the solar system, he would not have spoken so confidently. But the Valkyrie had stopped watching the outer system years ago. Why would they? Humans had no ships, no way to reach those distant places. The darkness beyond the asteroid belt was empty and meaningless. Except it was not empty. In the shipyards hidden among the moons of Jupiter, new vessels took shape every month. Human engineers worked around the clock, building, testing, improving. They had studied every piece of Valkyrie technology they could steal. They had taken it apart, understood it, and then made it better. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was one of those engineers. She had been one of the first to be extracted from Earth, smuggled out in a cargo container that was supposed to contain machine parts. Now she led the Weapons Development Division. "The new plasma cannons are ready for testing," she reported to Admiral Wayland during one of their encrypted communications. "They hit harder than anything the Valkyrie have. We used their basic design but increased the power output by 40%. "How did you manage that?" Wayland asked. Yuki smiled. "The Valkyrie are excellent engineers, Admiral, but they have not had to innovate for thousands of years. They use the same designs their ancestors created. We started from nothing. We had to be creative. Creativity is something they have forgotten. This was humanity's secret weapon. Not the ships, not the guns. It was the simple fact that humans never stopped trying to make things better. The Valkyrie had reached the top of the food chain so long ago that they had stopped climbing. Humans were still hungry, still pushing, still reaching for more. On Earth, Sarah Chen still worked in the factory. Her daughter was 10 years old now, tall and smart and filled with quiet anger. She had grown up under occupation, but she had never accepted it. At night, Sarah still told her stories about the hidden fleet, and now those stories had a new chapter. "The ships are almost ready," Sarah whispered in the darkness. "Soon the sky will split open, and everything will change." Her daughter held her hand tightly. "I want to see it, Mama. I want to see them come." "You will, my love. We all will." In his command ship, Thalvex prepared for sleep. Another peaceful day in another peaceful conquest. Tomorrow would be the same, and the day after that. The universe was orderly and predictable, just as it should be. He had no idea that across the cold darkness of space, 300 ships were waiting. 300 ships filled with humans who had spent 5 years preparing. 5 years training, 5 years sharpening their anger into something hard and sharp and deadly. The signal was coming. The day was approaching. And when it arrived, the Valkyrie would learn a lesson they had forgotten long ago. Never assume your enemy is broken. Never believe that silence means surrender. And never, ever underestimate humanity. Admiral Wei Lin stood alone on the observation deck of the Defiance, looking out at the stars. His fleet was ready. His people were ready. All they needed now was the word. Soon, he whispered to the darkness. Very soon. The universe held its breath, waiting for the storm that was about to be born. The first sign of trouble came from a patrol ship that never returned home. The Valkyrie cruiser Vigilant was assigned to watch the outer edges of the solar system. It was boring duty given to officers who had angered their superiors or shown too little ambition. Nothing ever happened out there. Just rocks and ice and endless empty space. Captain Korath was 3 days from the end of his patrol when his sensors detected something strange. A shadow where no shadow should be. A flicker of movement in the corner of the screen. He ordered his crew to investigate. The Vigilant was never heard from again. At first, High Overseer Talvex did not worry. Space was dangerous. Ships sometimes hit debris or experienced mechanical failures. He sent another patrol to search for survivors. That patrol also disappeared. Now he was concerned. Something is destroying our ships, his intelligence officer reported. The officer was nervous, his gray skin pale with worry. We have lost 7 vessels in the past month, all in the outer system, all without any distress signal. Thalvex frowned. Pirates? Rogue elements from another Dominion faction? Unknown, Overseer. We have found no debris, no bodies, no evidence at all. The ships simply vanish. This was wrong. The Valkyrie controlled this region of space completely. No one challenged them. No one would dare. Yet something was hunting his patrols like prey. He ordered sensor buoys deployed throughout the outer system. Advanced detection equipment that could track the smallest movement, the faintest heat signature, the tiniest disturbance in space. The buoys went dark one by one, each going silent without sending any data. For the first time in 5 years, Thalvex felt something he had not felt since he was young. Uncertainty, fear, the cold touch of the unknown. What about the humans? He asked suddenly. Could they be responsible? His intelligence officer actually laughed. The humans, Overseer, they have no ships, no weapons. They work in our factories and grow food in our fields. They are completely under our control. Then explain what is happening. The officer could not explain. No one could explain. And in the absence of explanation, dark rumors began to spread among the Valkyrie garrison. Whispers about ghosts in the darkness. Stories about the old humans' gods taking revenge. Nervous soldiers reported seeing shapes in the shadows of the night sky, then claimed they were imagining things. Thalvex demanded answers from Earth's population. He arrested suspected resistance members and questioned them harshly. But they all said the same thing. We know nothing. We are simple workers. We have no way to threaten your mighty ships. They were lying, of course, but they were very good at lying. 5 years of practice had made them experts. Commander Lyra Okonkwo received reports of the arrest from her network. She knew the Valkyrie were getting nervous. Good. Let them be nervous. Let them jump at shadows. It would make the final surprise even sweeter. They are asking questions about something called Prometheus, Thomas reported to her. Some of our people have heard the word. Lyra nodded slowly. The Valkyrie were not stupid. They sensed something was wrong, even if they could not understand what. But they had waited too long. They had grown too comfortable. Even if they discovered the truth now, it would not save them. Send word to the Admiral, she said. Tell him the time is almost here. The anniversary approaches. The anniversary. 5 years to the day since Earth surrendered. 5 years since humanity knelt before alien conquerors and promised obedience. What better day to show the universe that humanity never truly surrendered at all? In the hidden fleet, final preparations began. Ships were loaded with supplies. Weapons were checked and rechecked. Pilots ran simulation after simulation, practicing attack patterns they had designed over years of careful planning. Admiral Wei Lin addressed his entire fleet through a secure channel. His face appeared on screens across 300 ships, seen by the thousands of men and women who had given up everything to be here. For 5 years we have waited, he said. For 5 years we have watched our homes suffer under occupation. We have trained. We have prepared. We have turned our anger into discipline and our grief into strength. His voice grew harder. The Velkari believe they know us. They believe we are broken, defeated, finished. They look at humanity and see servants. They see workers, they see cattle to be managed and controlled. He paused, letting the words sink in. They are wrong, and soon we will teach them how wrong they are. Not with words, not with protests, with fire and steel and the wrath of a species that never learned how to surrender. Across the fleet, crew members felt something stir in their chests. Pride, hope, the burning desire for justice that had kept them going through years of exile and preparation. When we strike as one, Wayland continued. Every ship, every weapon, every soul in this armada fighting for the same goal, freedom for Earth, justice for humanity, and a message to the galaxy that will echo through history. He looked directly into the camera, his eyes blazing with cold fire. The Velkari wanted to rule us. Instead, they will remember us. They will remember this day. They will tell stories about what happens when you push humanity too far. And those stories will be told with fear in their voices for 1,000 years. On Earth, the resistance prepared for their part of the operation. Weapons that had been hidden for years were uncovered and distributed. Secret caches of explosives and equipment were opened. Men and women who had spent 5 years pretending to be obedient workers now revealed their true faces. Sarah Chen received a small package in the night. Inside was a communication device and a single note. When the sky opens, begin. She hid the device carefully and went to work the next morning with the same smile she always wore. Her Velkari overseer nodded at her as she passed. She nodded back. He had no idea that within days everything he knew would be destroyed. Thalvex received one final report before the storm broke. His intelligence officer had intercepted fragments of human communications. Hidden messages buried in what appeared to be normal data traffic. Most of it was impossible to decode, but they had managed to translate one word that appeared over and over again. Prometheus. It means something to them, the officer said. Something important. We have searched their historical records. Prometheus was a figure from their mythology, a being who stole fire from the gods and gave it to humanity. Thalvex stared at the word on the screen. Fire from the gods. What did it mean? What were the humans planning? Increase security, he ordered. Double the patrols. Something is happening, and I want to know what. But it was too late for security. Too late for patrols. Too late for anything except the reckoning that was coming. In the darkness between worlds, the Covert Armada powered up its engines for the first time in years. 300 ships began to move as one, accelerating toward Earth with weapons ready and hearts full of vengeance. Admiral Wei Lin stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the stars blur as they picked up speed. Signal all ships, he said quietly. The fire returns. The message went out across space, reaching every resistance cell on Earth, reaching every hidden operative in every city and factory and farm. 4 simple words that meant everything. The fire returns. Sarah Chen received the message on her hidden device. She looked up at the sky, though she could not yet see anything different. But she knew in her heart that the waiting was over. It is time, she whispered. Above Earth, the Velkari garrison continued their routine. Patrols flew their patterns. Sensors watched for threats that they expected would never come. The occupation continued as it always had. They had perhaps 12 hours left before their world ended. And they did not know it. The sky was about to split open, and humanity was about to make its appearance. The signal went out at exactly midnight, Earth Standard Time. 5 years to the minute since the surrender. Across the planet, hidden radios crackled to life with 4 words that changed everything. The fire returns. Commander Leira Okonkwo was the first to move. She had waited 5 years for this moment. 5 years of hiding, planning, watching her world suffer under alien boots. Now it was time to stop hiding. All units, begin, she said into her communicator. Her voice was steady despite the pounding of her heart. Show them what humanity really is. The first explosions lit up the darkness. Power stations that fed Valkyrie command centers were destroyed in coordinated attacks across every continent. Communication towers fell. Military bases found themselves under assault from enemies they never knew existed. Within minutes, the occupation forces were blind and confused. Sarah Chen heard the explosions from her small apartment. She grabbed her daughter and pulled her to the window. In the distance, flames were rising. Alarms were screaming. Valkyrie soldiers were running through the streets, shouting orders that no one seemed to understand. "It's happening," her daughter whispered. "It's really happening." "Yes," Sarah said. Tears were running down her face, but she was smiling. "The fleet is coming. I told you they would come." High Overseer Thalvex was pulled from his sleep by the chaos. Reports flooded in from every corner of the planet. Attacks everywhere. Human resistance fighters emerging from nowhere, armed with weapons that should not exist. His communications were disrupted. His power was failing. His perfect occupation was falling apart. "How is this possible?" he screamed at his officers. "Where did they get weapons? Where did they get organization? They are primitives." No one could answer him. 5 years of comfortable certainty had left them completely unprepared for what was happening. Thalvex tried to restore order. He commanded his orbital fleet to prepare for action. 40 warships that had been hovering over Earth since the conquest, ready to rain fire on any city that dared to resist. If the humans wanted war, he would show them what war meant. "Target the centers of resistance," he ordered. "We will glass their cities until they remember their place." His flagship rose through the atmosphere, weapons charging with the power to destroy everything below. Around him, his fleet formed up, preparing to punish humanity for its rebellion. He smiled coldly as his targeting systems locked onto the first city. They would learn. They would suffer. They would never forget the price of defiance. Then his sensor officer screamed, "Contacts, multiple contacts. They are everywhere." Thalvex looked at the main screen and felt his heart stop. Space was tearing open. That was the only way to describe it. The darkness itself seemed to split apart as ship after ship emerged from faster-than-light travel. Not one ship. Not 10 ships. Hundreds of ships dropping out of light speed in perfect formation all around his fleet. They were black. So black that they were almost invisible against the void. Only their weapons gave them away, glowing with power as they prepared to fire. Human ships, a human fleet, a human armada that should not exist, could not exist, yet was here nonetheless. Admiral Wei Lin's voice filled every Valkyrie communication channel. It was calm and cold and carried the weight of 5 years of waiting. "This is Admiral Chen Wei Lin of the United Human Armada. You invaded our world. You enslaved our people. You believed you had conquered us." On the bridge of the Defiance, Wei Lin stood tall, watching the Valkyrie fleet scramble into defensive positions. They were panicking. He could see it in their disorganized movements, their frantic communications. "Good. Let them panic." "You were wrong," he continued. "Humanity does not surrender. Humanity does not break. Humanity waits. Humanity plans. And when the moment is right, humanity strikes." He lowered his hand. "All ships, open fire." The sky above Earth erupted in light. 300 human warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Plasma cannons that hit harder than anything the Valkyrie had ever faced. Missiles that moved faster than their defenses could track. Railguns that punched through shields like paper. The Valkyrie fought back, but they were confused and outnumbered. Their formations had been designed to intimidate primitive populations, not to fight a real enemy. They had forgotten how to face a true threat. On the surface, Sarah and her daughter watched the lights in the sky. Flashes of fire, streaks of weapons fire, the shapes of ships moving too fast to follow. It was beautiful and terrible, and glorious all at once. "Look," her daughter said, pointing upward. "They came. They really came." Sarah held her close and cried. Tears of joy, tears of relief, tears of pride for a species that had never truly given up. In orbit, the battle raged. Thalvex's flagship was surrounded by 3 human destroyers. His shields were failing. His weapons could not track targets that moved with such speed and coordination. He had trained for 1,000 battles, but never for one like this. "Impossible," he muttered, watching another of his ships explode. This is impossible. They had nothing. We destroyed everything they had. His tactical officer looked at him with fear in his eyes. They built more. They hid it from us. All these years they were preparing. Thalvex understood now. The vanishing patrols, the lost sensor buoys, the word Prometheus. It all made sense. Horrible, terrifying sense. Humanity had not surrendered 5 years ago. They had pretended to surrender. They had smiled and bowed and worked in factories while building this fleet in secret. They had played the long game, and he had been too arrogant to see it. "We have to retreat," his officer said. "We cannot win this fight." But there was nowhere to retreat. The human ships had positioned themselves perfectly, cutting off every escape route. They had planned this attack for years. Every detail, every movement, every possible response. Admiral Wylin watched as the Valkyrie flagship began to break apart under concentrated fire. Its shields were gone. Its hull was cracking. Through the view screen, he could see escape pods launching from the dying ship, carrying survivors who would live to tell the story. "Cease fire on escape pods," he ordered. "Let them go. Let them carry news of this day back to their dominion." His officers looked at him with surprise. "Sir, they are the enemy." "They were the enemy," Wayland corrected. "Now they are messengers. The Dominion must learn what happened here. They must understand that humanity is not a species to be conquered. The survivors will spread that message better than any weapon we possess." Commander Elena Vasquez nodded slowly, understanding. This was not just about winning a battle. This was about changing humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The battle lasted 4 more hours. One by one, the Valkyrie ships fell. Some surrendered, some were destroyed. Some managed to escape into the darkness, carrying tales of horror and humiliation back to their masters. When it was over, the sky above Earth was filled with wreckage and victory. The human fleet moved into position around the planet, no longer hidden, no longer secret. 300 ships that represented 30 years of preparation, 5 years of waiting, and the unstoppable will of a species that refused to die. On the surface, the last Valkyrie ground forces surrendered to resistance fighters who had appeared from every shadow. Humans who had spent years pretending to be servants now stood as conquerors. The occupation was over. Commander Okonkwo stepped out of her bunker for the first time in months. The air smelled of smoke and freedom. Above her, she could see the shapes of human warships moving through the clouds. Their ships, their fleet, their victory. Her communicator buzzed. Admiral Wei Lin's voice came through clearly. "Commander, the orbital space is secured. Earth is free." She closed her eyes and let the words wash over her. Free. After 5 years of darkness, they were free. "Thank you, Admiral," she said quietly. "Thank you for keeping the fire burning." "We all kept it burning, Commander. Every person who refused to accept defeat. Every engineer who built in secret. Every spy who gathered information. Every child who believed in stories about ships hidden among the stars." Somewhere in a small apartment, Sarah Chen held her daughter as dawn broke over a liberated world. The sky was still streaked with the marks of battle, but the sun was rising. The first sunrise of a new era. "We won," her daughter said in wonder. "We actually won." Sarah smiled through her tears. "We did. Humanity won, and now the whole galaxy knows it." Above them, the armada that had split the sky open stood guard over humanity's home, watching, protecting, warning any who might think of attacking that Earth was no longer alone. Earth was defended, Earth was dangerous, and Earth would never kneel again. The Battle of Earth lasted 9 hours from start to finish. When the last Valkyrie ship fled into the darkness, humanity stood victorious over the ruins of their occupation. 34 enemy warships destroyed, 6 captured, the rest scattered like frightened animals. But Admiral Wei Lin knew this was only the beginning. He stood in the ruins of what had once been the United Nations building in New York. The Valkyrie had used it as their command center. Now it was a shell of broken glass and twisted metal. Beside him stood Commander Lyra Okonkwo, finally free from the shadows she had lived in for 5 years. Around them, the city was waking up to its first day of freedom. People filled the streets, laughing and crying and embracing strangers. The sound of celebration echoed from every direction. But the two commanders did not celebrate. They understood what came next. The Dominion will not accept this. Okonkwo said quietly. We destroyed one fleet. They have thousands. Wei Lin nodded. They will come, with everything they have. They cannot allow a primitive species to defeat them and survive. It would encourage rebellion across their entire empire. Then we have weeks, maybe months, before the full weight of their military arrives to crush us? Yes. Wei Lin turned to face her. His eyes were tired but determined. So we use that time. We build more ships. We recruit more soldiers. We prepare for the war that is coming. He looked up at the sky, where his fleet still patrolled. 300 ships that had seemed like an impossible dream just days ago. Now they were all that stood between humanity and destruction. And we find allies, he added. The Velkari have conquered hundreds of species. Surely some of them would welcome a chance to fight back. Across the planet, the work of liberation continued. Velkari administrators were rounded up and imprisoned. Collaborators were identified and dealt with. The systems of control that had governed Earth for 5 years were torn down piece by piece. But not everything was celebration. The cost of the uprising had been high. Thousands of resistance fighters had died in the ground assault. Cities had been damaged. Families had been torn apart. Freedom had not come free. Sarah Chen walked through the streets of her city with her daughter beside her. The girl was silent, taking in the changed world around her. Velkari symbols were being pulled down from buildings. Human flags were being raised. People were shouting and singing and dancing. What happens now, Mama? She asked. Sarah thought carefully before answering. Now we rebuild, and we prepare. The aliens will come back. They will try to take our world again. Will we win? Sarah looked at her daughter, at the hope and fear mixed in her young eyes. She thought about the fleet above them, the engineers still building new ships in the outer system. The millions of people who had never stopped believing that this day would come. We already won once, she said. We can win again, as many times as we need to. Far from Earth, in the capital of the Velkari Dominion, news of the disaster arrived with the fleeing survivors. High Overseer Thalvex was among them, his once proud uniform torn and stained with blood. He had escaped his flagship moments before it exploded. He stood before the Dominion Council, the ruling body of an empire that spanned thousands of worlds. They were ancient beings, cold and powerful, who had not known defeat in 10,000 years. Now they stared at him with expressions he had never seen before. Shock, anger, and beneath it all, fear. Explain, the High Chancellor commanded. His voice was like ice. Thalvex explained. He told them about the hidden fleet, the secret shipyards, the years of preparation that had happened right under his nose. He told them about the battle, about the weapons that should not have existed, about the tactics that no primitive species should have known. When he finished, the council was silent for a long moment. You are telling us, the Chancellor said slowly, that a species we conquered 5 years ago has built a military force capable of destroying our garrison fleet. A species with a civilization younger than some buildings on our homeworld. A species we considered barely worthy of enslavement. Yes, High Chancellor. How is this possible? Thalvex thought about the question. He had asked himself the same thing 1,000 times since the battle, and slowly, painfully, he had found an answer. They are not like other species, he said. They did not accept defeat. They did not submit. They pretended to submit while preparing for revenge. They hid their strength. They learned from us. They took our technology and made it better. He paused, struggling with the next words. They are more dangerous than we ever imagined, and if we do not destroy them completely, they will become a threat to the entire Dominion. The council debated for hours. Some wanted immediate retaliation. Send the full might of the Dominion fleet to Earth and reduce the planet to ash. Others counseled caution. If the humans had built one hidden fleet, they might have built more. Better to investigate before attacking. In the end, they reached a decision that would echo through history. We will send an embassy first, the Chancellor announced. We will demand their surrender and the destruction of their fleet. If they refuse, we will send everything we have, not just to conquer them, to erase them. No species may be allowed to defy the Dominion and survive. The message was sent across space toward Earth. An ultimatum: surrender or face total destruction. Admiral Wei Lin received the message 3 weeks after the battle. He read it carefully, then passed it to Commander Okonkwo and the other leaders of humanity's new government. They gathered in a rebuilt conference room, the same room where Earth's surrender had been signed 5 years earlier. They are giving us a choice, Wei Lin said. Surrender everything we have built and return to slavery, or fight a war we might not be able to win. The room was quiet. Everyone understood what was at stake. The Dominion was vast. Their resources were endless. Humanity had won one battle, but winning a war was something else entirely. Commander Okonkwo spoke first. 5 years ago, we made a decision to pretend to surrender, to hide, to wait. It was the right decision then, but it is not the right decision now. She looked around the room, meeting every pair of eyes. The galaxy is watching, every conquered species, every oppressed world. They saw what we did. They saw that the Dominion can be beaten. If we surrender now, that hope dies. But if we stand, if we fight, we show them that freedom is possible, that the Dominion is not unbeatable. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the engineer who had built so many of their weapons, raised her hand. Our production is increasing every day. We have allies reaching out from 3 different species who want to resist the Dominion. If we can hold them off long enough, we will not be alone. Wei Lin listened to every voice in the room. Some argued for caution, some argued for immediate war, but in the end, the decision was never really in doubt. Humanity had not built a secret fleet and freed their world just to surrender it again. He stood and faced the others. We will send a response to the Dominion, he said. We will tell them that Earth will not surrender. We will tell them that any fleet they send will be opposed, and we will tell them something else. He smiled coldly. We will tell them that we are coming, not just to defend ourselves, to free every world they have conquered, to tear down their empire piece by piece, to show the galaxy that no species should live on its knees. The message was sent, and with it, humanity declared itself not just a survivor, but a challenger, a new power rising in a galaxy that had forgotten what resistance looked like. In her small apartment, Sarah Chen heard the announcement on the radio. Her daughter listened with wide eyes as the Admiral's words were broadcast across the world. We will not surrender. We will not kneel. We will fight. Are you scared, Mama? Her daughter asked. Sarah thought about the question. She thought about the years of hiding, the fear that had lived in her chest for so long, the day the sky split open and hope returned. No, she said finally, I am not scared. I have seen what humanity can do when we work together, when we refuse to give up. The Dominion is powerful, but we are determined. And determination can beat power. She pulled her daughter close and looked out the window at the night sky. Somewhere up there, ships were being built. Pilots were training. Allies were gathering. A war was coming that would decide the future of not just Earth, but countless worlds, and humanity would face it standing up. The day the sky split open, everything changed. Earth was no longer a conquered planet. It was a beacon of hope in a dark galaxy, a symbol of what happens when a species refuses to break. The Valkyrie had wanted to rule humanity. Instead, they had awakened something they could not control, a species that learned from defeat, a species that turned weakness into strength, a species that would never stop fighting. The war for the galaxy had begun, and humanity was ready.